You're sitting somewhere quiet, maybe after everyone has gone to bed, maybe a Sunday morning before the house wakes up, and you have this feeling, this specific, nagging feeling that there is something you are supposed to be doing, not for anyone else, for yourself. And the problem is, you sit with that thought and nothing comes. Not because you're not trying, not because you don't care, but because you have been pointing outward for so long that pointing inward feels like pointing at a wall. That wall has a name. And this video is about what's actually on the other side of it, and why the path through it looks nothing like what you've been told. Here is the first thing that needs to be said clearly. What happened to you during the caregiving years was not a destruction of self. It was a distribution of self. There is a difference, and that difference changes everything about how the recovery actually works. Destruction means gone. Distribution means set down, in specific places, at specific moments, for specific reasons that, at the time, made complete sense. The version of you who had a particular kind of ambition got set down the year the second child came. And the logistics of 2 lives became the logistics of 3. The version of you who had a creative hunger got moved to weekends, then off weekends, then into a drawer you stopped opening because opening it hurt more than leaving it closed. The version of you who had strong, clear opinions about the direction of her own life learned, slowly, reasonably, in small increments, to orient around someone else's direction first. None of these were dramatic losses. That is exactly what makes them so hard to recover from. Each one made sense at the time. Each one came from love, or from necessity, or from both. And now you are standing in front of what that accumulation produced. This specific kind of quiet, this specific kind of blank, and someone is telling you to find yourself, or reinvent yourself. And neither of those instructions fits, because both of them misread where you are actually starting from. Find yourself assumes there is a whole self somewhere, waiting, intact, like a thing that was simply misplaced. Reinvent yourself assumes you are starting from zero, a blank slate, no material, no history, pure construction ahead. But neither of those is the actual terrain. The actual terrain is this. The parts of you were not destroyed, and they were not preserved. They were set down in specific places over specific years, and the work is not excavation, and it is not invention. It is something closer to gathering, which sounds simpler than it is, because gathering requires you to go back to the places where things were set down. And going back is not always clean. Think of a woman. Call her whatever name fits. She is 48. Her youngest just started high school. Her marriage is functional, maybe more than functional. Her career is intact. From the outside, the caregiving chapter is not even over. It is just beginning to loosen at the edges. But something shifted. She started noticing, in the silence after everyone's needs were met, that she was doing something she didn't have a word for. She was looking, not looking for something specific, just looking. The way you look through a room for something you know should be there but can't remember what it's called. She tried journaling, she got clarity for 2 weeks, and then went back to exactly the same place. She tried therapy. The therapist was good. She understood more. But understanding more did not change the quality of the silence. She went to a weekend retreat. She came back lighter for about 3 days, and then the weight settled back in, slightly rearranged, but not lifted. If any version of that story sounds familiar, the reason those things didn't hold is not that they failed. It's that they were built for a different problem. They were built for women who had a destination, women who knew roughly who they wanted to become and needed support getting there. They were not built for women starting from the void. Women who do not yet have a vision to aim toward. Women whose job right now is not to build, it is to locate, because here is what the process actually looks like when you are starting from distribution rather than destruction. It has 3 phases. They are not linear. They do not happen in order. You will move through all 3 simultaneously on some days and backward through all 3 on others, but they are navigable, and naming them matters. The first phase is locating, not recovering, not reclaiming, just where did I set this down? This is the phase that requires going back to specific moments. The year the ambition got quieted, the season the hunger got moved to Sundays, the relationship where the strong opinions started softening. Not to blame those moments, not to grieve them yet, just to locate them, to say, it went here. The second phase is sitting with. This is the phase most women try to skip. Because sitting with something that was set down years ago means feeling the weight of how long it has been there. It means grief. Not always dramatic grief. Often just the quiet, persistent recognition of something that has been missing for longer than you realized. The third phase is gathering. And gathering is different from reclaiming. Because reclaiming implies taking back something that was wrongly taken. What was set down for reasons that made sense. Gathering acknowledges that. It says, this is still mine. Not because it was stolen, but because it was never not mine. It was only waiting. Now here is where the real difficulty lives. Because the three phases sound manageable when they're named. But there is a specific obstacle that sits underneath all three. One that doesn't get talked about in the retreats or the journaling courses or the self-help chapters. And it is this: you are trying to rebuild towards something you cannot yet see. And most of the available guidance assumes you already have a vision, a direction, a version of yourself you are moving toward. It says know your values, know your desires, know who you want to become. And what she hears, what you might be hearing, is, you should already know this. You should have a vision by now. But here is what is actually true about the transition you are in. You cannot see the destination from inside the void. This is not a psychological failure. It is a structural fact of where you are in the process. The vision, the genuine, specific, non-performed sense of who you are becoming, does not arrive before the gathering. It arrives during it. Sometimes it arrives only after. And the women who have gone through this do not describe it as a moment of sudden clarity. They describe it as a slow accumulation of recognition. Moments when something pulled at them without an audience, when something felt true rather than appropriate, when a desire surfaced that they weren't performing for anyone. That pull is the signal, not the vision. Not yet, but the signal that precedes the vision. The thing that is worth following. And here is the deepest fear that lives underneath all of this, the one that almost never gets said out loud. What if I build something and it turns out to be another role? What if I go through all of this work, the locating and the sitting with and the gathering, and what I produce is just another performance? A second act that is as hollow as the life I was trying to leave behind? That fear is real, and it deserves a real answer. The difference between authentic reconstruction and another role is not something you can think your way into knowing. It is something you feel in a specific way. Performed desire has an audience. It answers the question, will this look like growth to people who are watching? Authentic pull has no audience. It answers a different question, one that surfaces in the quiet, when no one is watching and nothing is at stake. What do I actually want to be doing right now? Not what should I want. Not what would make a good story about who I became. What is actually pulling at me in this moment with no performance required? She already knows the difference. Even if she can't name it yet, the gathered self is not the performed self, because the gathered self was set down before the performance began. It predates the roles. It has a different texture. She can feel that texture when she's honest about it. And the grief that is still active during this process, that is not a sign that the recovery is failing. The grief is part of the gathering. It is what happens when you pick something back up and feel both the relief of holding it again and the weight of how long it has been on the ground. If this process, the locating, the sitting with, the gathering, is something you want to move through with more structure, there is a journal in the description built specifically for this phase. 21 prompts across 3 sections, not designed to give you a vision, designed to help you gather what was set down at the pace this process actually requires. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment. So what does moving forward actually look like? Not in theory, but in the specific conditions of a real, complex life. It looks like starting before the map is complete. Because the map is drawn by moving, you do not wait for clarity before you begin the gathering. You gather, and clarity begins to accumulate in the gathering. This is the specific reframe that this phase requires. And here is what to do with the objection that is probably already forming. The one that says, I have tried this. I got temporary clarity. I went back to exactly the same place. What is different this time? The going back is part of the process, not a sign that the process failed. Every time you move forward and then contract back, every time you locate something and then set it down again, the mechanism is different. You are not returning to the same place. You are returning to a slightly different version of it, carrying slightly more of what you gathered. Progress in this phase does not look like forward motion. It looks like the tide. It comes in and it goes out. But the waterline moves. What progress actually looks like here is not vision, not clarity, not a plan. It looks like this: a moment when something pulls at you and you notice it before you dismiss it. A moment when you stay with a desire for 2 minutes longer than you normally would before the voice that says, "Who do you think you are?" starts talking. A moment when you do something small, entirely for yourself, with no audience, no justification, no productivity value, and it feels, briefly, like the right shape. Those moments are not signs you have arrived. They are the gathering in action. And the grief that is still active while this is happening, the grief for how long some of these things have been on the ground, does not need to be resolved before you begin. It travels with you. It is part of you moving through this honestly, rather than performing a recovery that is as hollow as what you left behind. The woman underneath the roles does not require you to have a vision. She requires you to start moving in the direction of what pulls, and to trust that the map appears in the moving. If this opens something you want to move through with more structure, the journal in the description was built exactly for this phase. Not to give you answers, but to help you locate what was set down. Link in the description. Also in the pinned comment. What is one thing you set down during the caregiving years that you haven't fully let yourself go back for yet? So here is what to leave with tonight. Not a plan. Not a destination. Just this: you are not starting from zero. The parts of you that were distributed over the years of caregiving, the ambitions softened, the hungers moved to Sundays, the desires that learned to wait were not destroyed. They were set down in specific places, at specific moments, for reasons that made sense at the time. And they are still there. The work of this phase is not building something new. It is not excavating something lost. It is gathering, slow, non-linear, sometimes grief-filled gathering. Picking up what was set down and learning to hold it again without immediately handing it back to someone else. You do not need the vision before you begin. The vision is not the starting condition. It is what accumulates as you move. And the woman underneath all of this, the one whose desires predate the roles, whose pull towards certain things has never fully gone quiet. She has not been waiting for you to have a plan. She has been waiting for you to start moving. Not away from your life, not at anyone's expense. Just toward yourself, alongside everything else. In the small, unhurried, unglamorous moments when no one is watching and nothing is at stake, that is where she has always been findable. That is where you already are. Not a rupture, a return.